Yeah, so I could do, you know what I could do when I'm done with my job? I could do that. Is that all right? Rather than that,
That's better.
I could do, hold on. Right there. I can do that. I can go with my job. My job. Look at that job. What if I just take this candle?
Just when I got a coffee.
Yeah. Listen, it looks like unless Jim Mattis has a secret way back into the building, given that he's departed, he will not be here at the briefing. We do expect Sarah Sanders to talk about maybe getting more details on what could happen as it relates to Syria. I'm not sure that's the case. I'm not sure that Sanders is going to be willing to tip her hand on what she may know regarding the president's next steps. That said, we are now outside that 48-hour window, remember, that the president talked about on Monday, earlier this week, in which he said he would make a decision. At this point, given his tweets this morning, it seems as though the president is threatening a decision. He seems to be threatening this missile strike against Syria and putting Russia on notice. I will tell you that I spoke with one White House official just within the last hour who emphasized the importance of making sure that they are in close contact with allies. The national security apparatus is closely advising the president as well. He has dinner with congressional leadership later on tonight, and presumably this will come up as well, Allie. But at this point, it seems as though all signs point to something happening. It's a question of what and when, and I'm sure Hans can lay out some of the military options there. Experts that we've been talking to say that there are 2 or 3 really main ones. We may get some guidance from Press Secretary Sanders on that in just a couple of minutes. I'd also be curious as to what she has to say about the relationship now between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump, given that very tough tone that he took earlier today. Sure. So I'll let the pundits talk about what might be playing into the president's mind there. I can just tell you what I know based on our reporting here, our White House unit, which is that those 2 things are discrete sets of facts, right? The president is contemplating this decision on Syria. We know that. The president is upset, very upset, and publicly upset with his Justice Department and with the raid on Michael Cohen's office, as we're now hearing in just the last day or so from Michael Cohen for the first time, Allie. We know that he is feeling intense pressure based on what we hear from our sources related to the special counsel investigation, and I think that was all delineated, this sort of mashup of these 2 huge stories for Donald Trump in that series of tweets this morning when he talked about both. Sure.
Mary, going to see my parents this weekend. That's playing home series against the Goose.
Nice. Good tickets?
We're going to go Saturday night.
Nice.
That'll be the day to lose.
That'll be nice.
Pretty good at it.
Yeah. I know that man. Or did you see that video of the play that the Orioles pulled off against the Yankees? He struck a 1-2-5 double play. They had no outs. It was the 12th inning. Apparently they had him playing for 14 innings.
Oh, I was at the basket.
Yeah, you should look up. It's really pretty to watch. The catcher catches it right across his face, boom, right to him, 1 out. Throws it to bases were loaded, throws it to home, 2 outs. Throw the third, 3 outs. And they had no outs, bases loaded. It just, I mean, it looked like they were the Lakers.
It was their first 1-2-5 in like the history of the team.
Right.
Yeah, like that's
Right,
great.
they had it before the Orioles.
Yeah, the Orioles never had it.
But the videos, like, you have to find a good one. First video I watched, you couldn't really see the second one. It's really not.
Yeah.
Like, so institutional. Did they end up winning? I never actually found that out. I think they did.
They did.
Yeah.
I think the story that I was read about it, because obviously I didn't stay up to watch it. They were saying like to save the game for them so they could, get later.
Thanks, guys.
Basically, 16 hours in there, 48 hours. What could go wrong?
40 hours.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm getting that task back. I guess we're just yeah, let's take it. We got a big weekend plan. Something for breakfast. Yeah. And the switcher's covered with cake. No, it's something like that. Yeah, probably Sunday morning.
Like she was texting.
For me, my preference.
First person that was Christian. She did that a long time ago.
Why didn't you come down? Came there. She's hired me, I'm right under.
I took it. That's real fur too. Where is that?
What street to it?
What are you doing on the side of the road?
He's got the paper. He's running numbers. That's what he's doing. What are you doing on the side of the road?
I have no idea.
I live over there. Is that far? Where was that far?
Oh, that's down Calgary County. That was good.
Yeah. That was the whole Sunday drive, right? Downhill.
They're not necessarily at the border. Yes, Michael.
Frank Lewis.
I like it. Seeing these pictures. I like the whole thing. Most of the guys, come on. Not all of them.
Yeah, the slides we did. It's called RC prints, doesn't coat. Yeah.
Very tight.
Is it?
Yeah. I said on my TV. If she's watching a movie and it starts
He just came out. It's like they're probably nobody else is.
It's a very official looking lens. Yes, sir.
Welcome, everyone, here to News Now. You're taking a live look at Fox News' John Roberts getting ready for a live news hit in just a moment here. So you can see he's talking to the producers here, getting ready to go live on Fox News Channel. You are watching live here on Fox News Now, part of FoxNPhoenix.com. We do appreciate you joining us here today. We are just moments away from Sarah Sanders giving a news briefing at the White House press room. A lot going on today with Paul Ryan announcing that he will not seek re-election. Expect some of those questions. Also expect a lot of questions regarding Syria-Russia tensions with the United States. We will continue to update you live right here on News Now. Thanks so much for joining us here today.
Yeah, it sure is. And the briefing now delayed a half an hour. It's supposed to be at 3:30. Then it was kicked back to 3:45. Now 4 o'clock. We hope at some point Sarah will come out here to take our questions. And certainly the status of Robert Mueller and Rod Rosenstein and Jeff Sessions and others will be forefront here. And let's go to the press secretary.
Earlier today, the president signed a bipartisan anti-sex trafficking bill that provides law enforcement officials, including state attorneys general and local prosecutors, invaluable tools. The new law makes it clear to take legal action against websites promoting advertisements for this modern-day slavery. Human trafficking is one of the most barbaric types of exploitation, and President Trump has been clear that it has no place in our world. Advocates have long pointed to these websites as profiting from trafficking, including of children. It also provides new legal recourses for victims and law enforcement by enhancing penalties for people who promote or facilitate prostitution. Yesterday, the president signed an executive order on reducing poverty in America by promoting opportunity and economic mobility. The order provides 9 principles of economic mobility that will guide agencies that administer public assistance programs to review all regulations relating to work and send a report to the president on what they can do to get Americans back to work. The Trump administration recognizes that many states have been successful in enacting common sense work requirements and are seeing positive results, improving the lives of thousands of individuals and families. Many others have noticed and are leading the charge to provide greater opportunities to their citizens. President Trump believes we can lift our citizens from welfare to work, from dependence to independence, and from poverty to prosperity. We're also glad to see California Governor Jerry Brown work with the administration and send members of the National Guard to help secure the southern border. And with that, I'll take your questions. John?
Sarah, the Russian military has come out and said that there was no poison gas attack. That was Sergei Lavrov the other day. Said they've got no evidence of it. Today, a Russian military official says, there was an attack, but it was staged by the White Helmets Brigade, component of the rebels in Syria. What do you say to the Russian statement that this thing was staged by the White Helmets?
The intelligence provided certainly paints a different picture, and the president holds Syria and Russia responsible for this chemical weapons attack.
I have an unrelated question on the Cohen raids the other day. It now looks as though prosecutors were looking for some sort of documentation that might have been connected with the Access Hollywood tape that, as you know, came out during the campaign, which you were a part of. And that is an effort to connect the dots between subsequent payments that were made to keep people quiet, which may constitute some sort of FEC violation for an illegal campaign contribution. If the Mueller investigation has now morphed from looking at Russian collusion to an illegal campaign contribution by the president's personal attorney, would the president consider that to to be the Mueller investigation has strayed outside of its initial mandate?
The president certainly has been clear that he has a very deep concern about the direction that the special counsel and other investigations have taken. This investigation started off as Russia collusion, of which there was none. That has been very clear that nothing has come up over the last year, and the president has spoken at length on this topic. While the media continues to focus on this, despite the fact that there's been no evidence after a year, we're going to continue to stay focused on the issues. Yamish?
Hi. A source today told me that President Trump is concerned that Paul Ryan's retiring and not seeking re-election might encourage other Republicans to also not seek re-election. What do you say about that?
We certainly hope that Republicans will continue to remain in the House, especially those that support the president's agenda and those that are campaigning. We look forward to a number of them coming out and also supporting the president's agenda. Can't get into a lot of details about specifics of individuals running for office, but the president's been very clear about how he feels about Speaker Ryan. He knows that he's a truly good man and will leave a legacy of achievement that nobody can question, and he wishes him well as he moves forward in his future.
And Representative Scalise told me today, he said that there's a tough political climate and that Republicans were already facing a lot of challenges and a lot of problems going forward. There are some people, though, that think that President Trump is part of the problem that Republicans have, that his rhetoric, his actions have made it harder for Republicans to win midterm elections. What does the president think about that, and does he actually plan to campaign with people, and does he think at all that he could hurt the chances of some Republicans if he goes out in the field?
We think that Republicans, particularly the president, have a great story to tell moving into the midterms. We've had an incredibly successful first year and a half focused on tax cuts, deregulation, working towards the defeat of ISIS, remaking of the judiciary, and a number of other things that we consider to be great successes and great things for Republicans to talk about as they look forward to the future. Michelle?
Thanks, Sarah. Was Syria set to chair the UN conference on disarmament next month? Will the president consider, or does he have any plans to pull the U.S. out for the duration of Syria presiding over that group?
I don't have any specific announcements on that front right now.
Is the White House concerned with Facebook efforts to silence conservatives? It's been a topic on the Hill today and yesterday.
Certainly, the White House would always support not just conservatives, but everyone having the ability to speak freely on a number of platforms across this country, and certainly support the Constitution that provides that right. Stephen?
Two questions about the president's statement this morning. What does get ready Russia mean? Is the United States planning to target Russian assets or personnel in Syria as part of the attack that the president himself said is coming? The missiles are coming? What does it mean?
We're maintaining that we have a number of options, and all of those options are still on the table. Final decisions haven't been made yet on that front.
So does it mean anything at all? What does it mean?
It certainly means, I think there's a lot there that you can read from, but at the same time, the president has a number of options at his disposal, and all of those options remain on the table, and we're continuing to look at each one of them.
If I might follow up with a separate question about another one of the president's tweets this morning, can you explain how the special counsel investigation is made for bad blood with Russia?
Certainly, I think that the president has been extremely clear that the constant focus of the fact that the president and his campaign had any collusion with Russia has hurt those relationships. The president has maintained for a very long time that the United States and Russia having a good relationship is good for the world. He certainly still believes that. But at the same time, that's hampered the ability to do so, as well as the actions, particularly the bad actions that Russia has taken, including meddling in our election, among other things. But tying the president to that has created a lot of unnecessary problems. Mike?
Two quick questions. You said that the final decision on Syria hasn't been made yet. Does the president's emoting on Twitter complicate the planning on this or present a national security risk?
Not at all.
And on Michael Cohen, the Wall Street Journal and others have reported that Rosenstein signed off on the search warrant here. Does the White House believe this was a wrong decision for Mr. Rosenstein, and do they think he should step down?
Once again, I'm not going to get into the process, and that was something that you would have to talk to the Department of Justice about. In terms of personnel, I don't have any announcements. Hallie?
Sarah, two on Syria. Given your comments, given here at the podium, given the president's speech this morning, Is the White House prepared for the possibility of direct military engagement with Russia?
Once again, all options are on the table, and I don't have any further announcements about.
Like a yes, I want to be clear.
It sounds like all options are on the table, and a final decision hasn't been made, but we'll keep you posted once it is.
Let me ask that follow-up to the president. As you know, back in 2013, talked about why, when it comes to Syria, we can't just, in his words, be quiet, and if we attack at all, catch them by surprise. Obviously, the president didn't talk about a date or a time for any kind of attack on Syria, but he did talk about, as Stephen points out, get ready for something. Why this time is the president not taking his own advice and being quiet, as he put it?
The president, like you said, and actually answered my question for me, has not laid out a timetable, and he has a number of other options as well, and we're considering all of those options and a number of different timetables of what any action we may or may not take would look like.
So that 48 hours timetable is out the window that he talked about Monday, and you should disregard that?
In a public sense, certainly the president has made some decisions. He made a decision not to travel to Latin America so that we could focus on this. That was the first step in this process, but we're continuing to look at a number of options. Jonathan.
But Sarah, the president was direct in talking about missiles. He said, get ready, Russia, because they will be coming. Nice and new and smart. Why is the president telegraphing his military intentions on Twitter, announcing effectively an attack on Twitter?
Again, the president has not laid out a timetable and still leaving a number of other options on the table, and we're still considering a number of those, and a final decision on that front hasn't been made.
And if I can ask, another one of the tweets which Stephen asked about is also pretty direct here. He says, bad blood with Russia is caused by the fake and corrupt Russia investigation. Isn't it Russia's support for what the president himself calls a gas-killing animal, or its meddling in our elections, or its military intervention in Ukraine? Aren't those the actions that have caused bad blood?
It's both of those things. Neither one of those things are good for our country. The president's been clear that the relationship with Russia is at a new low, and that's due to a number of factors. Certainly, the things that you listed off, as well as the investigation, are all things that have hurt that relationship.
So Robert Mueller's actions are similar to, I
didn't say that. You're certainly putting words into my mouth. I said that both of those things are bad for America. That's all I said. Jeff, go ahead.
Sarah, Russia responded to the president's tweet by saying smart missiles should fly towards terrorists, not towards the lawful government. What's the White House's reaction to that?
I think that the president has been pretty clear what his position is on this front. Russia has proven themselves to be responsible in part for this. They guaranteed that the use of chemical weapons by Syria would not happen again. They failed at that. They've also helped enable Syria by vetoing 6 different UN resolutions that have helped protect Assad. So they certainly hold some responsibility in this, and certainly have proven themselves to be bad actors in this process.
Is the White House or the State Department in any kind of back-channel discussions with Russia to diffuse the tension? And does the president still hope to meet with President Putin sometime soon?
I don't have any announcements on either front. I can't get into the specifics on any conversations. David?
Madison, Mike Pompeo was spotted today. Did the president meet with them to talk about Syria? And if so, what came out of that meeting?
The president's national security team met today. That meeting was chaired by the vice president, discussed a number of options.
Blake. Sarah, you just said that the intelligence provided certainly paints a different picture, and that the president holds Syria and Russia responsible for the attack. However, earlier this morning, the defense secretary said, we are still assessing the intelligence ourselves. We're still working on this. So what has changed over the last handful of hours from when the defense secretary said, we're still assessing the intelligence, and now to where you clearly point the finger at Russia and Syria?
As I just stated to both Jeff and Jonathan, Russia holds some responsibility in the fact that they guaranteed that Syria wouldn't use chemical weapons again, and they did. They've also hold some responsibility in the fact that they have the 6 UN resolutions that they vetoed to help protect Assad. Both of those things lie at Russia's feet in terms of responsibility in this process.
So then you still are assessing the intelligence then, as the defense secretary stated?
Certainly there are things that are being assessed. I can't get into the details, but we're confident in the part of this process that we're in to feel comfortable making the assertions that we have earlier today. Francesca.
Thank you, Sarah. You said all these things about Russia and that they've been bad actors. They voted against United Nations. Security Security Council resolutions as well. And this morning, the president on Twitter said that Russia is supporting a gas-killing animal. So does the president now believe that Russia has firmly established itself as an enemy of America, especially since Russia has said that it will shoot down U.S. missiles if the president fires upon Syria?
We certainly think they've proven to be a bad actor, and we hope that that will change.
What about an enemy, though? Are they an enemy, though, of America at this point?
That's something that Russia needs to play a role in determining. We hope that they will continue, or not continue, I'm sorry, to be a bad actor and make some changes in their behavior. But that's something that Russia will have to play a role in determining. Sorry, Francesca, I'm going to keep going. April?
Sarah, as you say, all options are on the table when it comes to Syria and Russia. Has diplomacy been exhausted? That's an option as well.
As I said, all options are on the table.
So it has not, are you saying that?
Again, all options are on the table. That contains a number of different things.
Still be in play.
It could be, but there are a lot of other options that are also on the table.
4 senators, 2 Dems, 2 Republicans have a bill to ensure that a special counsel isn't fired for political reasons. Does the White House support that bill? Does the White House think a bill like that is necessary?
We don't have an administrative policy on that right now. John?
Yep. Thank you, Sarah. 2 questions. On Monday, I asked you if the president had contacted President Macron and Prime Minister May about an alliance with France and England, not unlike that President Obama tried to forge in 2013. He has had 2 conversations with both of them. Have there been any new developments, and has he spoken with any other world leaders, especially those in Central Europe, about a larger coalition instead of the U.S. going it alone in Syria?
Yeah, we've had regular contact with regional allies and partners, including Israel, Saudi Arabia, France, and the UK, as well as a number of other countries at various levels. We've provided readouts of the conversations the president has directly had, but both the National Security Advisor, as well as the Secretary of Defense, the Acting Secretary of State, and a number of others within the administration have had regular contact with their counterparts from a number of other countries.
And the other thing I wanted to ask, the president has a good relationship with Congressman Scalise, a good personal relationship with his family. What does he think about the reports that Congressman Scalise will run for Speaker soon?
The president has a great relationship with a number of members in the House of Representatives who support his agenda, and he looks forward to working with all of them over the course of the next 7 years, I guess. Matt's not great. Tamara?
Yeah, is the president considering firing or in other ways pushing out Rosenstein?
I don't have any personnel announcements at this front.
Okay.
Steve?
And, just one other thing. Paul Ryan today said that he's been given assurances by the White House that the president isn't planning to fire Rosenstein or Mueller. Do you know where he's getting those assurances? Is it coming from the president? Is it coming from others? Where is it coming from?
Again, I don't have any announcements on that front.
Sarah, Senator Markey, who's a member of the Foreign Relations Committee, said today that the president must come to Congress for authorization prior to another military strike on Syria, and there are others who are also saying that. Does the administration intend to do that, and if not, why not?
Obviously, the administration will follow whatever laws and regulations are necessary for any actions that we take. Because we haven't laid out any specific actions that we plan to take, I can't tell you exactly what needs we would have to go to Congress with. Jim?
It sounds like the president hasn't really left a lot of wiggle room. You said that all options are on the table, but when the president says, get ready, Russia, they will be coming, the missiles are coming, how is that anything but an announcement of a pending airstrike?
That's certainly one option, but that doesn't mean it's the only option or the only thing that the president may or may not do. Just because he does one thing doesn't mean he can't do a number of other actions as well. And he certainly hasn't laid out the timetable, which would be broadcasting his intentions.
One other quick thing on Speaker Ryan's announcement. There are some fears up on Capitol Hill, and we understand some in the White House, that a Democratic wave is coming and can sweep the Republicans out of power in the House, and that could potentially lead to impeachment proceedings that the Democrats could bring forward. What is the president's thinking on that? What is your thinking on that?
Like I said earlier, we are very confident in the record that we have and the very successful first year and a half that the president's had in office, and we expect to talk about that a lot. We'd love for you guys to talk about that a lot more too, and we'd be happy to send you some talking points if you need some guidance on that front.
Do you think a wave is coming?
We certainly think we have a great story to tell, and we think America will be ready to listen to that, and certainly has, I think, felt the impact, certainly from an economic standpoint, for this administration, and we're proud of that. I'll take one last question right here, Andrew.
Just to follow up on Jeff and April's question, is there anything that Syria or Russia could do at this point to avoid military action?
Again, I'm not going to get ahead of anything, but certainly, like I've said a few times today, all options are on the table, and we'll continue conversations with our allies and partners and move forward from that point. Thanks so much, guys. Have a great day.
All right, that is Sarah Huckabee Sanders wrapping up their White House news briefing. We are going to keep it going with the news story here for you on News Now. Take a look at how the Dow wrapped up today, down 218 points in the red. Coming up next here on News Now, we're going to take you out to New Mexico, where just moments ago, Attorney General Jeff Sessions wrapped up talking about border security there in New Mexico. Let's take you out there live right now. News Now. This is just moments ago.
United States Attorney, Assistant United States Attorney, which he did in Easton, Tennessee for many years, was elected chairman of the Assistant United States Attorneys Association. And we found, to my dismay, that the office of liaison for state and local law enforcement hadn't been filled in the Department of Justice in some time. And so I think he's been a super hire. He's certainly been fabulous to me. He knows law enforcement. He cares about it. He's been just a rock-solid ally in our effort. And I know many of you have gotten to know Steve, and I hope you'll continue that relationship. So I want to thank, on behalf of President Trump, who stands firm for law enforcement, to thank each of you for your service and to tell you we have your back. We support you and the efforts you and your team make every day to make our community safer, to stand up for law and order and discipline and public safety. We recognize that you are, in fact, this thin blue line between law-abiding people and the criminals. Between a family's security and danger for the family, you protect us and our communities. You secure our country from drugs and violence. It is a massive challenge you face. We want you to reach your highest productive ability. We at the Department of Justice want to help you. We know that 85% of law enforcement is state and local. President Obama sent us 3 executive orders. 1, back the women and men in blue. That's the first one we got. Second one was to reduce crime in America. That's a little thing like that. It's been going up. We want to reduce crime in America, make our communities safer, and he particularly asked us to assist and go after and dismantle the international, transnational criminal organizations that are out there. And you here in this area on the border are confronted with that to a degree. Most are not. We solicit your help. Sometimes the federal abilities to go transnational, go across our state lines can help you make those big cases that go from the street level to a monumentally important case. We want to be your partner in that. I think it's particularly important because what the border does in fact impact the whole country. 2,000-mile border leaves our country vulnerable to transnational criminal organizations. These are drug cartels, street gangs like MS-13. I don't know how much you have here, but you have some. Just one of our little special goals is to dismantle and destroy MS-13. That is a violent gang in Islip, New York. I met the two ladies and two families, fathers and mothers, of the two 16-year-old girls that were murdered with baseball bats and machetes in there by MS-13. It's just, I'd met them beforehand, and the president invited them to the State of the Union address. So this is a violent gang. We're just committed, and we believe we can damage them severely and hopefully dismantle them. But there are a lot of other ones out there, and probably some in your neighborhood a lot bigger than MS-13. But I just personally ask you, don't let MS-13 slide. If you've got some information, let's see if we can't get them done. Most of the heroin, cocaine, methamphetamine, fentanyl in this country is coming across the border. We know that. It's odd how it's all happened. Used to fly it in. We used to have shrimp boats coming into Mobile, Alabama, and Biola Battery, and shrimp guys would make a bunch of money until they all started going to jail, and they quit. And then the planes, we'd have planes, and that kind of going on. So now it's been coming across the border almost exclusively, shipped all over the country. So you are also on the front lines of that, and we know that we can do better about it. We want to be better in dealing with it. And the drugs that we are seeing, based on their purity particularly, are the most deadly we've ever seen. This country has never seen the kind of deaths that we're seeing. In 2015, we had 52,000 overdose deaths. In 2016, it jumped to 64,000 overdose deaths. 17, the preliminary numbers look like it's 66,000 overdose deaths. Those death numbers need to go down. We do not need to continue to allow this unprecedented death toll impact our country. I know probably some of you are carrying Narcan with your officers. The public safety, I believe, here in New Mexico is all carrying that. That's happening all over the country. We even need it for our own officers who find themselves in contact with pure fentanyl. It's a deadly, deadly substance, and we've got to do better about it. So wearing the badge takes courage, but officers on the border are facing, no doubt about it, the most significant challenges still. You have limited resources. You face a particularly violent threat every day. We have a crisis here. We know it, the president knows it, and we're determined to do something about it. That's a goal that I commit to you. Last month, we saw a significant increase in illegal border crossings from the lows we saw last year, enough to make us really concerned. We saw a steep drop after President Trump's inauguration. Just the force of that election and all impacted the flow in a significant way downward. But the record flows but we're seeing increasing flows and worry that we might see more this summer. So we're going to step up our efforts to achieve zero tolerance and zero releases and 100% prosecution wherever possible. It's not it's not possible, probably, that we can do everything we'd like to do this year, but we're moving in that direction, and we're going to make some real progress. Some of it, we believe the increase in illegal crossings could be due to the Trump economy. Things are going well and economically, and people may be coming for that reason. The lack of the wall on the southern border is an open invitation to illegal crossings. The failure of Congress to move on the wall and other necessary steps is sending a message, I'm afraid, that we are not resolute, and it encourages more people to make the trip, which is what we don't want to do. But the increased crossings are happening because of the loopholes in our laws. They're being exploited by illegal aliens and open border radicals every day. For example, the last administration received large numbers of illegal aliens who illegally crossed the border. They released them, and they claimed, though, they couldn't be sent home because of fear. Unsurprisingly, the exploitation and the abuse of the credible fear loophole has been a big problem for us. If any of you talk to our Border Patrol officers and ICE officers and HSI people and the U.S. attorneys who are dealing with this, you know that that's true. After the release from custody, particularly for the unaccompanied minors, a large number of the aliens simply just disappear. They abscond, never showing up for their hearings in court. The vast majority who do show up or have shown up have had their asylum claims denied because they weren't good asylum claims to begin with. And their claims are not justified. Often they're just totally bogus claims. Just because you have a danger in one town in Mexico or any other country doesn't mean you can't go to some other place in that country. If somebody feels danger here, doesn't mean you get the right to demand citizenship or entry into Canada. Give me a break. That's not the way the system's ever been intended to work. Many smugglers and transnational criminal organizations have been exploring another loophole in our immigration laws that pertains to the ability to quickly return the purported unaccompanied alien children back to the countries from where they came. We can return UACs to Canada and Mexico relatively quickly, but because of loopholes in our laws, the large numbers of UACs from Central America are not able to be returned quickly. It's very difficult and prolonged. Instead, these young people are being released into their communities to someone who takes custody of them. We don't know who these people are. They come from Islip, New York. They come from Maryland, they come from Virginia, they come from San Francisco, they come from all over the country. Many of them may indeed be drug smugglers and criminals themselves. This is not a healthy way for us to operate. We've got to fix this problem. And it's encouraging people to make the trip that shouldn't be making the trip at great expense and risk. They know this. They understand it, and that's why so many come. It's frustrating the work of our Customs and Border Protection officers. It places their lives at greater risk than they should be. It utilizes immense amounts of time, effort, and resources to confront these problems. It's just not a common sense approach for any nation that wants to establish a feasible, workable immigration system. And we're getting criminals within our young people that are coming across the border. We just heard about it from some of your members earlier, a few minutes ago. But in 4 days, at the end of March, Customs and Border Protection apprehended 5 juveniles who were allegedly smuggling this killer fentanyl across the border. Between the 5 of them, they allegedly had more than 16 kilograms of fentanyl. 16 kilograms. That's enough to kill millions of people. I also seized a great deal of cocaine that could deal death to thousands. So I could go on about those examples. Most of you know that. There are many more stories, not to mention the countless deaths from drug overdoses that we see every day. This is not acceptable. It cannot continue. No one can defend the way the system is working today. We are a strong, prosperous, and orderly nation, and such a nation must have a lawful system of immigration. No. Every nation has borders, but let no one contend that we reject immigration, that we want to wall off America, they say, and separate us from the whole globe. That's a totally bogus argument. We admit 1.1 people in this country, 1.1 million people every year to lawful permanent residence in America. People apply from all over the globe. They're accepted. People with family connections under current law are have an advantage. So we are a very generous nation. No nation is close to as generous as we are. What we're talking about is ending the illegality. And it's only reasonable that a good and decent people, as the Americans are, to want to end the legality, to create a rational immigration flow, and protect the nation from criminals. What's wrong with that? What can be wrong with that? The American people have urged, pleaded, demanded this of Congress and their presidential leaders for years, 30, 40 years. And they make promises after promises. I've been there. I was in the debates. And these promises get made, but when the dust settles, nothing gets fixed. It's time to fix some of these problems. One time. And you in law enforcement have been asking the same thing. I want to say, last month, nearly 400 sheriffs from across America sent a letter to the Congress asking them to finally secure the border, to take action on the sanctuary cities problem. Congress has got to listen to the American people and help President Trump, not block what he's trying to do, what he got elected to do. And it cannot be, as it seems to be today, that someone who illegally crosses the border here on a Monday, ends up in San Francisco on Wednesday, can never be deported. That's what they're saying. We're a sanctuary city. Even if they were hauling dope to San Francisco and they got arrested, they can't be deported. Now, how illogical and insane, really, is that? This is the kind of thought process that's causing much of the problem, and we've got to challenge it, go at it head on, and I think the American people are going to choose common sense and law enforcement, myself. And it cannot be that a great nation rewards those who enter the country and reward them with legal status, Social Security, welfare, food stamps, and work permits. That doesn't make sense either. The first thing you do is stop rewarding financially people who come across the border illegally. The United States of America, let me say this, is not an idea. It's a nation state. We have a constitution, we have laws, we have borders. Our Constitution, like Canada's and Mexico's, does not apply outside our nation states. So we don't have anything to apologize in terms of the history of a good law enforcement system here. Most Americans understand it, and they agree with us. Under President Trump, we have seen wages increase at the fastest pace in many years, maybe 2 decades, which I think is good. But if you read some of these business journals, wages are going up. This is horrible. How could that be horrible? There actually wages go up for a change in this country instead of going down. It shows how some of the people that are pulling the strings in these issues are how they think. And the open borders crowd are using that argument right now. And certain sectors of the business community are whining about having to pay a little higher wage to some hard-working American for a change. But absolutely, we cannot allow and create a system that floods the labor market with foreign workers who are willing to work for less, pulling down the wages of Americans who need a better chance to advance themselves. This is a fact of life. You bring in labor flow higher than can be absorbed, you do impact negatively the wages of Americans. And so it hurts particularly recent immigrants who are trying to get their feet on the ground, as well as our minorities. They are clearly suffering the most from these policies. And they have dreams too. They want to do well too. With President Trump, we have a new era of support for law enforcement like we haven't seen in many years. You might even say we've got a new sheriff in town. I would think so. Under his strong leadership, we are working to take criminals off the streets by restoring the rule of law and really protecting and fixing our immigration system. First of all, the President has ordered the Department of Defense to work with the Department of Homeland Security to secure our border. We're going to have as many as 4,000 National Guardsmen come. They can help. Certain things they are not able to do and will not be doing, but there are many ways that they could be supportive and helpful to us. Second, the Department of Justice is taking actions to bring down this huge backlog of cases we have in our immigration courts. And it's a challenge. This includes the surge that we've seen for a number of years that has been reduced, but we are bringing as many as 100 immigration judges to the border areas so that we can process these cases more effectively. And we're actively working with our partners at Homeland Security to ensure that we can deploy judges electronically and by video teleconference. You can help us handle a lot more cases.
Is a Fox 10 News Alert.
And welcome everyone here live to News Now. We're taking you out to California right now in Los Angeles, where there's a hit and run investigation, but there is a lot of police activity here. Take a look at this intersection. We're working to get you guys some more details here, but yeah, this is definitely a scene you don't see quite too often here with a hit and run with all of these police vehicles and officers. You see police tape up as well. We'll continue to try to get some more information here for you. Sky Fox Live up in the air for us here. News Now, continuing live. Thank you to all. Thank you to all our viewers here live on Fox 10 and News Now and Fox 10 Phoenix Facebook Live. This hit and run investigation happening right now in Los Angeles, California. We're going to get you guys some more details here, but this just came into our feed and I was like, wow, this is very serious, as so many police officers have arrived to this scene. We continue to wait here for more details, but this is a big response from law enforcement here. We'll continue to see what exactly is happening here with this story. But you see the police tape up in several areas here of this block, of this intersection, totally shut down at this moment as police are working this investigation. You are watching live here on News Now and Facebook Live. Let us know where you are watching from right now. We just launched Sky Fox there in Los Angeles, bringing you these live aerials right now. So thank you for joining us here live. When breaking news does occur, you know we have you covered right here on News Now. So thanks again for joining us here. We are part of the News Now team here. Sky Fox live up in the air here in the Los Angeles area. Let us know where you are watching from, as we always have viewers from all over the world. Thank you to our viewers here for continuing to give us so many views here from across many different platforms. Thank you for watching News Now. All right, folks, we are getting a little bit more information here for you from local media reports. Rocks and bottles were thrown at a Los Angeles Police Department sport utility vehicle today at the scene of an earlier hit-and-run crash in South Los Angeles. Officers and firefighter paramedics responded today to a call for help from another officer near this intersection. Aerial video showing several patrol cars here in the area. Officers have blocked off at least one intersection where several people on bicycles had gathered outside a McDonald's. It was at the same site where a driver struck a person on a bicycle in an earlier hit-and-run crash. Details regarding the crash involving a 22-year-old man on a bicycle not yet known at this time here. So this is at the same site in South Los Angeles where there was a hit-and-run investigation, and for some reason people decided to start throwing rocks at the officers here, and now that has a huge police presence here. So we continue to take you these live aerials right here on News Now. We do appreciate everybody joining us here worldwide on News Now today. Fox10Phoenix.com as well as Facebook Live. Thank you. We thank our viewers here worldwide on the Fox 10 News Now stream, part of fox10phoenix.com. Rocks thrown at officers here in Los Angeles. This is the same area where there was a hit-and-run investigation a little bit earlier. Still no word yet on why the rocks were thrown at the officers and why. Still the huge police presence right now there in South LA. Let us know where you are watching from. Thank you so much for joining us here as we are getting closer to being 5 o'clock out on the East Coast, 2 o'clock out on the West Coast. Thank you for joining us live. All right, folks, you can see Chopper is leaving there. Thank you so much for joining us here on Fox 10 Phoenix Facebook Live. Come on over at fox10phoenix.com where we continue News Now. All right, folks, we are now taking you out to St. Louis, Missouri, where the Missouri governor, his political future faces a test when an investigation ends. We are going to learn a little bit more today as the governor is expected to speak. Let me give you some context here with the Missouri governor. The political future of the Missouri governor, Eric Greitens, faces a big test when a special legislative committee issues an investigative report related to an extramarital affair that the Republican engaged in before his election back in 2017. The report, along with the governor's pending criminal trial on a felony indictment related to the affair and an investigation by fellow Republican Attorney General Josh Hawley into the activities of a veterans charity founded by the governor, have created challenges and uncertainty for the former Navy SEAL officer, once considered presidential material.
Just to make sure everybody has levels on the malt box. If you have any issues, let me know. Test, test. Mic check. Check 1, check 2. Is everybody plugged in? Good to go? All right. Is anybody having any issues getting levels right now? Mic check. Mic check 1, check 2, check 3.
All right, folks, while we wait for that to happen, we're going to take you out here now to Arizona, where we're getting an update on a border wall update here in Arizona.
Patrol with both aviation maintenance and pilots and crews. In terms of what is happening with the ground-based elements, I know that's always of interest. To date, I'll list the military specialties that we've been asked for assistance. Engineering, including infrastructure repair, road grading, filling of potholes, helping to sustain border infrastructure. Transportation, folks to move people around by ground transportation, hauling equipment, moving equipment around. Vehicle maintenance, sustainment of the vehicles that are doing those missions, as well as existing Customs and Border Patrol vehicles. Administrative and clerical work, supporting things that are happening in the 11 Border Patrol stations around the state that are currently being covered by Border Patrol agents. Communication support, supporting the communications equipment that they use to support either broadband or voice or over-the-air communications equipment for Customs and Border Patrol, and finally, surveillance support supporting the electronic surveillance equipment that's arrayed across the border. Ultimately, our objective of this mission is to surge badges to the border, put more enforcement agents out there to stem the tide of illicit activity, and as we have year over year, hopefully mitigate any potential loss of life for people out in the austere environment of the desert, as we have seen over the past number of summers here. So with those opening remarks, I'll close it there and leave it to you for questions. Go ahead. That's correct. I think the characterization would be that the first troops that will be on assignment with Customs and Border Patrol for ground-based missions will be Friday, and the first Border Patrol station that they will arrive at will be Nogales. We'll have 60 in place in Nogales on Friday. Go ahead. Well, when you talk about obstacles, again, each of the initial missions of assignment involve operating from an existing Border Patrol station. So the biggest obstacles that I see is essentially surging these additional folks into the community. And one of the biggest challenges we have as we look out at Douglas and Bisbee and Lukeville and Yuma and all the different places, we have to have opportunities to house, feed, and sustain the soldiers that are out there. So we're working through lodging contracts and those types of things, really as a bigger obstacle than the actual what they're doing for their 8-hour duty shift in their support of Customs and Border Patrol. Go ahead.
Governor of California just released their MOU to border. Put a bunch of limitations on what they can do. Governor Ducey put these limitations on what you all can do regarding.
I have not seen the California MOU, so I'm unfamiliar with that. I'll have to get back to you about what it says. I've never seen it. First time hearing of it. In terms of limitations, when we worked initially through this process last week, the conditions were that these deployments would be under the authority of the governor under Title 32. And the specific section of U.S. Code is Title 30, U.S. 32 502F2. And that is the originating authority upon which the governor can be delivered fully federal paychecks, both pay and allowance and operations and maintenance costs to move the helicopters, to move the equipment, to do the other types of things. So we said that there would be no state cost share with this. It would be a federal support of a federal entity, and the federal border, national security is border security, and that was a parameter. Second, that once they arrived, we would in-process them, and the decision to arm them, I think, might be what you're specifically talking to would be based on mission of assignment, our state statutes, and what Customs and Border Patrol felt was necessary. Of those initial 338 ground and air, none of them have been assigned a mission that we feel requires them to be armed as a process of their duty.
Spilled over from last night.
Oh, okay. Is that what it is? Well, that's
Yep, go ahead. Right now, the authority and the first memo states that the authority for this mission will extend through 30 September 2018. I believe that is tied to the way the fiscal budget process works, where it goes through the end of the fiscal year, and then 1 October we will reinitiate a new year, and if the federal government authorizes funding, we would continue.
Much less dramatic than what maybe the headline would say in terms of what the response is. Is that a fair statement in terms of that is I think they probably got to do that.
I would characterize it as it might sound different than the headlines, but the narrative for this mission has never changed internal to DHS or DOD, or here in the National Guard, or in our communication with the governor's office or the supporting command, in this case, DHS and CBP on the ground level. This has always been the focus of that mission. I know of no additional fencing that is going to be built as a result of this. I don't have that level of granularity, but we can get back to you on that. What I do know is there has been requests in this initial engineering group to repair existing damage to both fencing and other barriers along the border. Yes. Well, the goal and focus of this mission, as I said, is to surge badges to the border. That's the focus, to stem both illicit activity, as well as mitigate the humanitarian issue. And one of the things that frequently comes up is this why now? And I want to make sure it's clear that this is my 5th budgetary cycle as the Adjutant General. Every single year that I've been the Adjutant General, when I started, we were running Operation Phalanx, which began in 2010. Similar, nearly in its construct, to this current Operation Guardian Shield. Every year, we would submit a budget request to the federal government about what was needed for support, not enforcement. And every year, that budget came back with some number less than what we felt was needed to support our local communities and our counties along the border. So we have done that through the governor's office every year. We're very satisfied that DOD has stepped up to work in collaboration with DHS to provide us the funding for this now. Go ahead. The funding initially was for up to 4,000 troops spread across the 4 border states: California, Arizona, New Mexico, and The answer to the total number through September 30th has not yet been defined. What we have been authorized to date is that 338 number I gave you. Someone in the federal government is having to calculate costs, and I know they're working through that right now. I can tell you what the 338 payroll can cost. I don't know about the operations and maintenance, flying hours, and the rest. That'll be as used basis. Go ahead. This mission is not unique in terms of the fact that we have done this in the past. In 2006 with Operation Jumpstart, where we authorized up to 6,000. In 2010 with Operation Phalanx, we were authorized up to 1,200, and this is across the southwest border as a federal requirement. This time initial estimates up to 4,000. What I would say has changed since the initial group of 2006 is an advancements in technology. So in 2006, what we did, which we felt was much riskier for a number of reasons, was we used a number of guardsmen to go out to observation points across the desert we have tried to populate those observation points now with camera or other kind of infrared sensors, and so those guardsmen will be in a rear area now, able to monitor those. So we literally have all of those same types of sites out there that need coverage, but just don't have enough agents on the Customs and Border Patrol site to watch all those cameras. So that's it. There's been a big technology change since 2006. Oh, yes, ma'am. Sorry, I got the light. No, this is the initial wave. So as I said, 4,000 is the cap right now. This is a fast-moving ball game, so I do think that the folks in Washington, D.C. are working through the calculus on, okay, 4,000 is the number, how much money needs to be moved around to make sure they can cover both pay and allowance and operations and maintenance for this mission. So I expect this number to grow in Arizona. We're right now working on it. Right now they asked us to cut their orders not longer than 31 days until they can get some fidelity on cost. And we expect then to extend this initial group at least through the end of the year. And then we'll look at some rotational strategy. I've told them not less than 90 and probably not more than 180 days as we rotate people in. Yes, sir.
Forgive me if this is a different question. Will you be patrolling on
So as you know, the border is a myriad of private lands, state trust lands, tribal lands, and federal lands, and encompassing 4 counties with Yuma, Pima, Santa Cruz, and Cochise. We will not be actually patrolling. Does that make sense?
Your mission, does it concern officers? Will you be operating on?
I would refer you to Customs and Border Patrol about how they enforce the border in terms of actual patrols and the rest. But I'll give you an example of how we would support them regardless of where it is, and we've done this in the past. We get a 911 call for a group in distress in the desert, and they're out on the Tohono O'odham Nation. We're going to send our helicopter out there to deliver life-saving capability, be it food, ice, and water, to get them out of that situation and back to the nearest Border Patrol station. So we can relieve Border Patrol helicopters from doing those types of missions, as well as direct support of flying agents to the site. Yes, ma'am. So what I said was, of the initial 338, none of them have a requirement to be armed. That's different. If the situation that the Customs and Border Patrol asks us to be in, and we feel it is in their best interest for them to invoke their inherent right to self-defense as members of the profession of arms, we are not going to inhibit that. As a matter of fact, we have a process in this initial plan to make sure that there is a number of them that are weapons qualified and ready in the event that we needed to do that. But right now, none of those missions that we've been assigned have that requirement. Does that clarify that? That is correct. It would be a mischaracterization to say they can't be armed. The units that we have deployed or the individual assignments that we've received to date do not require that based on the mission. That is an accurate statement. When you say, do we have a game plan? I'm confused by the question. Any group that makes a 911 call for request and assistance or works with a local law enforcement agent, we will be in support of them based on their requirements. So there is no exclusion of we'll pick up this group or not another group. Major General Michael Michael McGuire, McGuire. I serve concurrently as the Director of the Department of Emergency and Military Affairs in Governor Ducey's cabinet and as the Adjutant General, the historic term for the Commanding General for the National Guard here in the state of Arizona. And that's a good segue to, am I going to be out there doing this? We have a Standing Joint Task Force in Arizona. Standing Joint Task Force Arizona is currently commanded by Brigadier General John E. Hopeford. Brigadier General Hopeford will be essentially the operational command element that will take these requests for assistance and requests for forces, vet them, get volunteers from the state of Arizona. If we can't source it here in the state, then we'll go out to other states to fill those requirements and round out the support to DHS through Customs and Border Patrol. As I mentioned earlier, we'll give you an update in terms of progress. We're at 266, driving to get to 338 in this initial wave. We'll do that digitally tomorrow. And please keep in touch with Captain Thacker if you have any other questions. I really appreciate your time today, and thanks for taking the time to show a great interest in the citizen soldiers and airmen of this great state and nation. They're very, very proud of what they do. I would add as a parting comment, the media has always been very gracious with the National Guard. We have deployed 12,000 man-years since 9/11. And we've had you show up on New Year's Eve, on Christmas, on all of these times to say thanks for your service. And I appreciate your support on Monday saying the same thing. And I can tell you, from doing this type of mission twice in the past, every service member that goes down and does this mission comes back and says to me, I was very proud of the opportunity to impact our local communities that we live and work in. So thank you very much for coming today. Keep in touch with Captain Thacker, and thanks for your time.
Okay, and that was the live update here that we received from the Arizona National Guard. Update there on the troops being deployed to the Mexico border area. You're watching News Now.
This is a Fox 10 News Alert.
And now we are in Tampa, Florida for you right now. Sky Fox aerials here in Tampa, where there is a police investigation right now of a possible pipe bomb in this neighborhood. You're watching News Now. And we're losing that shot right here. Let's see if we can get it back here for you, folks, on News Now. And here's what we know, folks, at this time. The Tampa Police Department is investigating an apparent pipe bomb explosion in a neighborhood in Tampa. It happened this afternoon. That's 2 blocks north of Interstate 4 and 4 blocks east of I-275. We are learning that this street has reopened. Tampa police are investigating a possible pipe bomb explosion. You're watching News Now here. All right, folks, so we'll keep an eye on this story. If we hear anything, we'll let you know right here on News Now. We're going to go to a video a little bit earlier ago as House Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi and others talking about, well, you know what, we're not going to go to that. I want to go to this other video first here, folks. This is Senator Chuck Schumer and other U.S. senators holding a news conference to demand accountability from U.S. EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt.
Men and women in Congress are standing up against the abuses of EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt. I voted against confirming Scott Pruitt. I knew he would work to undermine environmental and public health protections, but Mr. Pruitt has been even worse than I expected.
That's my line.
Yeah, oh, darn it. Sorry, Tom. Because I get to go first, I get to steal your lines and Sheldon's lines and Bennett's lines.
Was your line? He was worse than Tom Udall expected, or he was worse?
Not only has Scott Pruitt undermined.
Hold on one second, folks. Technical difficulties.
Personal perks. He has terrorized. His staff. He has driven out great institutional knowledge. He has illegally delayed implementation of existing laws. He has skirted enforcement responsibilities by these political He has overridden the scientific advice of experts and has subverted scientific knowledge in a manner which is never seen before. changing their duties and sidelining them. Scott Pruitt is the administrator of EPA, not emperor. He must answer questions that I and my colleagues here and millions of Americans have asked, and that is why we are here today. Scott Pruitt must explain this special treatment. He must respond to the GAO investigations. He must respond to questions I have asked about how he arranged his apartment, about the $43,000 privacy booth in his office, and many, many other issues. In fact, I believe it's time for his imperial tenure to end. I will be introducing a sense of the Senate resolution that he should resign or be removed for the good of the American people. I'd like to now turn the mic over to my good friend Chairman Carper, and the list here is Senator Markley, Bennett, and Schumer's going to show up at some point if he isn't here already. Okay. Yeah, and Senator Whitehouse. Where is he in here? Okay. Well, he's right down here. Okay, good. Senator Carper.
Thanks,
Senator Carper.
I would describe that as an aspirational introduction. He introduced me as chairman, and so can always dream.
Uncle Mo always used to say when I'd say, well, now my Uncle Mo, he'd say, thank you for that rousing introduction. So I'm going to expect you to give a rousing introduction for the next senator.
And the next one would be Senator Markley. Oh, that will not be hard. That will not be hard. We just started off. Thank you very much, Tom, for bringing us together. For everybody here that's part of this, it's the team that's determined to make sure that we do what is right, not what is easy or expedient. But we just began with these words. The legislative branch has its own responsibilities to provide oversight over the executive branch. Our mission should be to provide oversight for the current administration, to ensure integrity and transparency over policy decisions being made that affect people's lives today. Those are not my words. Those are the words of Senator John Barrasso, June 21st, 2010, when we had a Democratic administration led by Barack Obama and Joe Biden. To those words, I would say this. I'm Tom Carper, and I approve this message. 50 months ago, many of us stood in the United States Senate, and during the confirmation debate on the worthiness of Scott Pruitt to serve as administrator of the EPA, I said at the time he was not fit to serve as administrator. I meant it. I felt it then. Everything that's happened since then just serves to confirm that earlier thought. And as much of a threat I thought he would pose to the environment, to clean air, clean water, the health of our people, I never in my wildest dreams imagined that he would be guilty of the series of not just misdeeds, but just ethical lapses and misbehavior that we've witnessed over this period of time. Leadership is many things. Leadership is staying out of step when everybody else is marching to the wrong tune, not to the right tune. Leadership is putting the best people you can around you, and when a team does well, give the team the credit. When a team falls short, the leader takes the blame. Leadership is figuring out what is the right thing to do, not what is easy, not what is expedient, what is the right thing to do, and doing it again and again and again. Leadership is the golden rule, treating other people the way we want to be treated. Leadership is focusing on excellence in everything that we do. Those are just some of the qualities of leadership that I think could be used to describe many of the people I'm standing here with today. Sadly, they do not describe Scott Pruitt. It shouldn't come as a surprise to many of us that Mr. Pruitt, 15 months ago, you may recall that we're trying to get some information from the AG's office from the state of Oklahoma about Freedom of Information Act messages. And our efforts were brought to a crawl in order to create a 2-year backlog for requests, refusals to be transparent about his current ethical issues at EPA. What is astonishing, and Tom's already said this, but I'll just reiterate it. What is astonishing, though, is Mr. Pruitt appears to think that public service means serving not our country, not our constituents, but serving himself. He consistently uses taxpayers' dollars as if they're his own. And he shows more poor judgment. He shows a disrespect for hardworking Americans, not just in Oklahoma, not just in Delaware, but across the country. Ours is a co-equal branch of government. When our founding fathers wrote the Constitution, they made it difficult. Churchill describes democracy as the worst form of government devised by wit of man. It's a hard way to govern. A hard way to govern. All kinds of opportunities, safeguards put in there to make sure that these three co-equal branches of government are balancing one another off. Fact-checking, if you will. Stopping bad things from happening. We have a responsibility in the legislative branch to do just that. And we are not living up to our responsibilities in that regard. If Gina McCarthy were the head of EPA and was guilty of any of the things that Senator Udall just ticked off, one after the other, we would have her up here on Capitol Hill every week explaining what was going on at EPA and why was she behaving in that manner. That's the kind of oversight that my chairman, Senator Barrasso, a good friend, called for in an earlier day. We need that same commitment today, especially with this administration. And with that, let me turn to my friend, Jeff Merkley. Jeff? Thank you, Jeff.
Henry David Thoreau said, "What use is a home if you don't have a tolerable planet to put it on?" And Americans have weighed in time and time again that we want a tolerable planet, that they want clean air and clean water. They don't want to live in the type of polluted rivers that in a land with polluted rivers that catch fire or air you can't breathe. We see that in other places around the world, but not here because of the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency. It has been supported, founded by a Republican president, President Nixon, supported by blue presidents and red presidents alike, because it is fundamental to the quality of life of our nation. But now we have this extraordinary situation. And I think about how President Trump campaigned. He said he wanted to drain the swamp. And what did Americans expect from that rhetoric? They thought he was referring to not having leaders who are imperial, who are above the normal person, who engage in profound abuses of public funds, who engage in deep conflicts of interest with the industries they're supposed to regulate. In other words, draining the swamp meant everything that is the 100% opposite of Scott Pruitt. Scott Pruitt is the swamp. And as we look at the difficult work of clean air and clean water, we know how teams have to come together to work on every aspect of it. And stakeholders have to be consulted. It's like building a house. In building a house, it's complicated. You have to have somebody who knows the foundation and knows the carpentry and knows the wiring and knows electricity, knows the roofing, knows the siding. You have all of that put together. That's the work of the EPA, the complicated work of clean air and clean water. But to tear down a house takes one day and a wrecking ball. Scott Pruitt is the wrecking ball. He's profoundly unfit for the office that he holds. He's using that office to hurt Americans, and it must end. That's why I so much appreciate the leadership Tom Udall is putting forward in saying that it is time for the imperial service of Scott Pruitt to end, both for his personal behavior, but perhaps far more important to Americans' quality of life, his behavior as a wrecking ball in the realm of clean air and clean water. And I proudly join in that call. Thank you. Thanks, and now I get to introduce Senator Markey, who was immersed in fighting environmental battles before I was born almost, forever, and doing such a great job of it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Tom, so much for all of your great leadership and for calling us here together. Scott Pruitt's leadership of the EPA has made the agency as toxic as a Superfund site. It is impossible to have any confidence in Scott Pruitt to lead this agency. Time after time, he has undermined the core mission of the EPA to protect the environment, health, and safety of all Americans. The litany of Scott Pruitt's sins is very long. Repealing the Clean Power Plan, rolling back fuel economy emissions standards, supporting withdrawal from the Paris Climate Accord, weakening the Clean Water Act, and allowing more toxic waste into our streams and wetlands, loosening standards for hazardous pollutants like mercury, arsenic, and lead that corporations can spew into our air. With Scott Pruitt at the EPA, more Americans could get sick, more children could get asthma, more people could die. Mr. Pruitt has willfully shut the public out of rulemakings and only sought the opinions of big oil cronies and corporate special interests. Mr. Pruitt has ignored the law and openly worked against the will of Congress to protect our citizens and the environment. Since coming to the EPA, Scott Pruitt has invested more in his $50 a day condo than in the public's health. He has made the EPA stand for every polluter's ally, and he does that every single day. Now it is emerging that he has betrayed the trust of the American people by pursuing ethically questionable behavior, charging taxpayers millions of dollars for security, approving raises to favored aides under special authority, and potentially misusing agency funds. His mismanagement of the Environmental Protection Agency, its mission, his intimidation of scientists, and his insistence in undermining good policies that protect lives is unacceptable. Now, with ethical questions emerging around the abuse of power and position, it is time for Scott Pruitt to go. It is time we issue an eviction notice, change the locks, and kick Scott Pruitt out of the EPA. His time has come. So we thank you, Tom, for your great leadership. And now I turn to introduce another great environmental champion from the...
Natalia Bender, who came here with blueberries on her face.
Excellent. The great Michael Bennett.
Oh, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. Thank you.
The great Michael Bennett.
Thanks. Thank you, Senator Markey. Thank you, Tom, for your leadership. It's a great privilege to be here with you today. Before Administrator Pruitt was confirmed, like my colleagues here, I voiced serious concerns with his failure to recognize climate change and science. Nominating a head of the EPA that does not believe in climate change is like nominating a Secretary of Defense that only knows how to wave a white flag of surrender. That's why Administrator Pruitt did not get my vote. His tenure has only confirmed my fears and more. He's failed to implement EPA's mission and to protect Colorado's kids. And his actions also
This is a Fox 10 News Alert.
And once again, folks, we are live out here now in Illinois. This is a Chicago suburb, Hinsdale, Illinois, where there is a massive fire going on with this home right here as fire crews continuing to try their very best to put this out here. But you're taking a live look here. House fire in Chicago suburb, Hinsdale, Illinois. And this is a very big fire for a very big home there as well there in Hinsdale. These are high-priced homes in this area of the western suburb of Illinois. You're watching live here on News Now. We do appreciate everybody joining us here worldwide for the very latest. All right, so the very latest that we are learning here, firefighters continuing to battle this fire here as firefighters seen using at least 2 lines trying to keep the blaze from spreading to the neighbors in that area. You're watching live here. This is a 3-alarm fire in Hinsdale, Illinois. No word yet on injuries. Hoping the very best for those homeowners, especially the firefighters that continue to really continue here on News Now as they continue to try to put this fire out. You're watching live. As you can imagine, you have to be worried too if you're one of those neighbors right there and you're hoping that none of those embers fall to your roof, or this could really light up a whole neighborhood here. This is a mansion fire. You're watching live here on News Now. See, they have the tennis courts there in the back area, but fortunately this home is going to be for a loss here, and that's a very sad thing for these homeowners here is that fire is just ripping that whole upper portion of this house. We are being told that the fire started around 4:30 local time. So about a half an hour ago. You're watching live here on News Now. We are learning of no injuries right now as firefighters are just making a very defensive stance right now, hoping that this does not spread to the other homes in the area here. This is a huge fire. This is a huge home. Hinsdale, Illinois, a very wealthy neighborhood, western suburb of Chicago. Just joining us here, Sky Fox live in the air in Hinsdale, Illinois, Chicago suburb of this mansion fire continuing to rage on here as crews really trying to knock it down, but doesn't seem like they're getting anywhere right now. No word yet on any injuries. Hopefully everybody is safe there on the ground level, and we'll continue to update you here live on News Now. We're continuing to watch here live for you on Fox News Now. Scott Fox, Chicago suburb of Hinsdale, Illinois. As crews continue to try to knock down this fire, feel so bad there for the homeowners there. Hopefully everyone's safe inside. They were able to get out, but when you take a look at this, a lot of lines here that the fire crews, and you see some of them resting as they're going to try to give it another go here in a bit. But a lot of crews out here trying to knock down this fire. You're watching live on News Now. As the fire continues to rage on here, Sky Fox live on the air, Chicago suburb of Hinsdale, Illinois. As you can see, a lot of firefighters here on the scene as they one in the ladder truck here and the others trying to make entry. And this is a huge fire. We don't see these too often. Usually by the time Sky Fox gets to an area of a fire, it's already out. It's not big, but this is a mansion fire there in Hinsdale. So unfortunately, this will be a loss for this home here, as it's going to have so much damage. You can see the 3 floors here, second and third, is engulfed right now. You can see a lot of the community members there looking on as they are pretty much just in shock at this moment, seeing this mansion go up in flames. Really nothing they can do about it at this point, just hope and pray for the people that live in that area. And as we continue to watch on here as this fire rages on, you are watching live here on News Now, part of FoxNPhoenix.com. This is just a huge mansion here in the area of Hinsdale, Illinois, suburb of Chicago. You can see they have multiple lines down trying to fight this fire here, but that smoke just continues to billow out of this mansion. And welcome to everyone watching continuously on fox10phoenix.com. Neighborhood continues to watch as a mansion burns, and it's been going on 45 minutes now, getting close to an hour. It started at 4:30 local time there, and unfortunately this home is going to be a loss here, as really community members, all they could do right now is just look on. Hopefully some of them are trying to maybe run in and get some water for the firefighters. That would be great. So really, they have the hose lines that stretched across around this block, really. And we do continue to watch here worldwide on News Now of this fire continuing to rage on as crews continue to battle this 3-alarm fire in Hinsdale. Hinsdale Fire Department very busy today as they have lines stretched around the block here trying to knock this down. All right, we're getting a little more information here on this home. That's it was recently sold for $2.6 million. This is a home that features 6 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms, 7,800 square feet. Features carpet, hardwood tile. It was built in 1898. It sits on 1 acre. It was last sold in July of 2016 for $2.6 million. Features 5.5 baths. We are continuing to stream this to you live on News Now here. Fire continues to rage in Hinsdale, Illinois. You're watching live. we continue to stream live for you on the News Now, part of Fox10Phoenix.com. Thanks to all our viewers watching. A mansion fire, Chicago suburb of Hinsdale, Illinois. No reports of any injuries here, but unfortunately this home will be a loss. We're watching live. And we're continuing to watch here worldwide here for you on News Now, part of Fox10Phoenix.com. As you can see here, the community continues to look on here. A fire that's been going on for the last hour and a half here. We've been covering it for you on News Now. Just a reminder, everybody, that we will be shutting down the stream in just a little bit here. But we do appreciate everybody joining us here today, and we hope that you'll join us here tomorrow for more News Now. Well, folks, and that's going to do it here for us today. Thanks so much for joining us here worldwide on News Now. We will see you tomorrow.